people will say, well, I'm going to buy a $700 dog or a $500 dog, and I'm going to save my money to have it trained. And it's like, you're kind of looking at it like, well, that's looking at the job that they think you can do with it and kind of not realizing what the responsibility is on their end.
Sure. That's like taking a Honda Civic to a mechanic and expecting to get a Maserati back.
Doesn't work, does it?
Well, it just doesn't. I mean, you can't, you can only work with what you're given, and they don't all make it. That's just a fact of the matter, and I would say most definitely, if a puppy is the cheapest part of any dog. If you gave $5,000 for him, that's still the cheapest part of the training and the process. If the dog lives 10, 12 years, you're going to have $15,000 in him, yep. Minimum. So, the picking the right genetics and not being afraid to spend, because the difference, honestly, in a $700-800 puppy to a $1,500 puppy is, you can't even explain it. It didn't double. It's, typically a $1,500 pup is well bred, genetically sound, and was bred for some specifics, as opposed to someone who what I call just backyard bred some pups to make some money.
Yep. So
you're much more apt, and you're gonna spend the same money training that $700 dog that you're gonna spend on that $1,500 dog or $2,500 or whatever you decide to give, whatever your budget is for the pup. But if I could give the listeners one piece of advice, it would be, don't be scared to spend money on a puppy.
Yep.
Spend the money on the pup up front, and then hey, maybe that, most of those dogs have a tendency to lean toward the 4-month side of the gun dog program as opposed to the 6-month side, because they're, what they were bred to do.
Yep. Well, and what you're talking about with this genetics and paying up for the right bloodline. So it's easy to assume that dog is going to be better when it gets to you, and it's going to learn quicker, and it's going to be the athlete, and it's going to be smart. But that pedigree and that level of intelligence translate to every little lesson you're going to teach them at home. If you're housebreaking them, if you're teaching them to not jump up or teaching them their place, the entire thing. And people say this to me all the time, and I'm sure you've heard it a billion times, that like, I don't need a dog that good, or I don't need to spend that. And it's like, the difference, like you said, if you spent $1,000 for a dog that comes out of a killer bloodline versus that $500 dog that at best is just AKC purebred, doesn't mean anything about what's going on inside of it, that's worth, like, whether you're a hunter, whether you just want a family dog, whether you're going to walk that dog in the park and it's going to play with kids, the level that dog can achieve as far as being an amazing dog is so much higher.
Well, and I tell people this, I relate this all the time, nobody really needs a Ferrari. And a Ferrari will run 55 miles an hour, just like a Honda Civic will. But if you want to run 200, you can grab another gear and go 200. It'll run 55 in style. And that's, I try to relate that to people who are buying pups is, why purchase a pup that at its best can make a mediocre hunting dog when you could purchase a pup for a little more, put the same training in him, and he'd be an outstanding gun dog, and have plenty of reserve in the tank.
Yep. It's a lesson we hit on over and over again. And it just all ties into the experience of owning a great dog. Like who doesn't want to own a great dog? Yep. Everybody does, but it's just like, what are you willing to spend? What are you willing to put yourself through to have it? It's not just going to happen with the bloodlines, but the right bloodlines are going to make that route from point A to point B so much simpler.
A lot smoother. Makes everybody's life a lot better. I mean, it just makes everybody's life so much simpler, so much easier. Everybody thrives, or everybody hopes, when they come to train that they send a pup in for training that, you're going to be able to show them one time and they get it. But the dogs that just are subpar intellectually, it takes so much to get that dog to do the same thing that a good pup does in 1 or 2 tries.
Yep.
So you get a lot more bang for your buck if you do your homework on genetics and puppies and then socialize them at home well. You get a whole lot more bang for your buck when you send them to a guy like me.
Yep. Well, and I think there's something interesting going on in there. I read something a while back about it. It was just a random thing on the internet, but it said, we'll take like take African lions for example, and we'll say something like the African lion can jump, 20 feet, or let's say a leopard can jump 20 feet up in a tree carrying a gazelle. But we apply that broad stroke to the entire species, but it's clearly not true with all of them. But we don't do that with humans. We don't go, well, this human man can dunk because some guys can dunk a basketball. And we look at dogs and we've been led to believe like, oh, I have a purebred black lab. So in our minds, the average person's mind, they go, well, that dog's going to be able to hunt. It's capable of everything. But the variation in individual dogs because of their breeding is tremendous. There's a spectrum there.
It's it's you said it 100% correct. There's a big difference in a dog that people have a tendency to just breed for money, and someone that breeds just for money and sells $500, $600 pups out of the backyard really doesn't care if they chase a tennis ball. It makes no difference, and trying to make a dog like that into something that you can sit around the campfire at the duck camp and sip brandy and drink cigars to is it's difficult. You want to every trainer's hope is when you send a dog out that the dog is impressive to the people that they hunt with, to their owner, and some people the bare minimum is all they know. Mm-hmm. So they really don't know what a really nice dog is, but they could had they done a little more homework, in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because if you haven't been exposed to a rock star dog, it's hard to know what they're capable of.
Sure.
And we take it for granted because of the circles we fly in, and obviously you do because of what you know for your life. Like you built your entire lifestyle around it. So you've seen genetic and performance rock stars over and over, and I've been lucky and I've seen some, and I own one right now. And so it's once you get a glimpse of that world, I always tell people to me, it's like I love bow hunting, and there's something about sitting out in a tree, watching the world wake up, the woods, and seeing or being on a mountainside elk hunting or something. Like I feel like I have a secret that unless you go do it, unless you got to sit on the side of that mountain and listen to a bull elk bugle and just see the sun come up over the far peaks, you can't know. And being around a really badass dog is kind of the same way, where it's like, if all you've ever seen is the farm dogs, that's kind of what your expectation is. And so, I mean, I guess where I'm going with this is when you're dealing with clients and you're working with potential customers at your kennel, the one thing I'm hearing more and more that I like is people are asking to see the parents. They're asking to see dogs perform. Are you seeing more of that where people are like maybe a little more aware that they could build that into their process for finding a new dog?
Well, yes. Yeah. I mean, we welcome that at any time. Now, the one, I guess, say advantage, or maybe you could call it a disadvantage, with my kennel in particular, a lot of the people that I deal with kind of go on, they call me and they go, hey man, here's what I'm looking to do. Where do I need to start? Or can you find me a pup? And that's really good as long as you are dealing with a reputable trainer and he's, he's not just after a paycheck. But the owner, there are a lot of guys in this business that aren't honest, that won't do the right thing. So, the owner, it's their responsibility also if they call somebody, and everybody started somewhere. So I don't mean to say that guys that are just getting started aren't, don't know what they're doing. But it's, if you call someone and you tell them what you're looking for and they go, well, yeah, I got one or two in mind. Let me shoot you some pedigrees and here's the owner, particularly say my case, we don't own a lot of the studs. We own a lot of the bitches, or clients own a lot of the bitches, and we outsource to studs that have particular characteristics that we're interested in. So, coming to my kennel to see field champion, say Flex or Clooney, which are two real hot field champions right now, would be next to impossible. Now I can put you on the right place to go see them, or a trial to go watch them run. But we have the bitches in place. But once you make it to, kind of like Tom, once you make it to Tom's level or my level, or there's a lot of good pros out there. Don't get me wrong. Once you make it to that level, having the parents on both parents on site is difficult, but we should be able to give you open access to someone who is knowledgeable, or the stud owner, or the bitch owner, or pedigrees and genetic testing, and show you where the white lists are to go find out about CNM or EIC, or or hip size, elbows. We should be able to get you on the right path at least.
Yep. And yeah, I'm glad you clarified that, because it is, if somebody reaches out to a fellow like you, it's going to be pretty hard to see both parents. There's a possibility to maybe run across one or the other, or grandparents or something.
Sure.
But the one good thing about that, even if you can't see both parents, is in person, you can probably figure out a way to see good dogs these days. Sure. I mean, the information that we have available. And my point with that is the work that I could put in just to find a fellow like you, or talk to somebody like you and get the information from you and build in some of this other due diligence. All of this stuff is free. A phone call is free, and the advice is worth a lot. And so just that's the message I want to get to the listeners is like, don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to understand, like, you maybe don't know as much as you think you do. So go to somebody who does. Like you brought up a mechanic before. If you were like, hey, Tony, go fix your truck, I can't do it. Like I know how to drive a truck. I know kind of what parts are what, but I'm not going to fix it. And I always tell people reach out to me all the time because I'm passionate about bird dogs and I love this stuff. I'm not the guy. Like I'm the conduit to guys like you and Doc and whoever else, because I don't want them to, I always try to be careful. Like if I give advice, I'm like, I stole that straight from this guy or this person. Like this is not my thing. Sure. And so the opportunity to interact with people like you is out there, and that resource is amazing. I mean, how many phone calls do you get a week from people who are like, hey man, I'm looking for a puppy, or hey, I have a question about this or that or whatever. I mean, is it all the time?
It is. I tell you what I find from time to time when your name gets out, and most especially, guys like myself and some other guys, which, I'm young in the field trial sport, but been hunting. We had a lot of success and Master Nationals and SRS. But I find sometimes that people won't call guys like me for some reason. And really what I think it is they're a bit intimidated. Like we don't have time to talk to them, when if you call me, no different than the first time I talked to you, I'll give you everything that I can give you. Every bit of information, every website I know of, owners' names, contacts. I mean, if we're, it stands to reason, or it's probable that, someone has the success that we've had, we probably eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. So if you want to call me and talk about something that I'm passionate about, we're probably going to pour all the time we can into you, most especially if you're, I don't care if you send a dog to me to train or buy a pup from me. If you're better in the breed, I'm going to give you every resource I got. To try and, which like kind of what I was saying, you call a person like me or Danny Farmer or Alan Pleasant or, some of the big name trial guys, people have a tendency not to call them, thinking that, well, maybe, it's out of my price league or that guy doesn't have time to deal with me. When if you get us on the phone, 99% of the time, we're going to talk you to death and try to help you any way we can. So that's one thing I would say to the listeners is when you're looking for a pup, or Tom, Tom's another one, don't be afraid to call the guys who you view as the best in the business. Don't call somebody that you think that may not have the reputation that one of us have, just because you think that we won't have time to deal with you. There's probably a reason why we're as good as we are.
For sure. And it's a matter of, so there's two things going on here. And I always say this, like some people I meet are put on this earth to train dogs. I believe that. Like I meet certain individuals such as yourself, and I go, there's only one reason that dude's here. Like there's only one main reason. And not only that, but because of that and following the path you've taken, I think about it. The average person might train 5 or 6 dogs in their life. Maybe a few more, maybe a few less.
That's a hardcore. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a core guy that really enjoys it.
for sure. And you're going to knock that out before breakfast. And so my point is there's very little that you guys haven't seen, and the average person has access to you. But the point that I want to make is, before you buy the puppy, before you start shopping, talk to somebody and talk to somebody who knows, a professional. And even if you're not, like you said, even if you don't think you need professional training, whatever, take the advice on, be honest about what you're looking for out of your dog for its life, what you might hunt with it, the trials you might want to run. How many kids do you have? How much do you travel? To get the advice on what kind of dog do you need for your specific lifestyle before you make any of the decisions.
Sure. Yes. It's a 10 to 15 year investment, and nobody wants to deal with a butthole for 10 or 15 years, and some people get lucky. Don't get me wrong. Some far and few between people get lucky and they get that one. But, there's a reason why they call them diamonds in the rough. There are not many diamonds. There's a whole lot of rough.
Yep. Well, the lucky thing, I think that sucks, because I hear about it where, like, oh, I got the farm dog and it turned into this amazing thing. Like, of course you hear that story, because if somebody gets that, they're telling everybody they can.
Sure.
And, the reality is you're not hearing from most of the people. Like in the deer world, I can see 200-inch whitetail bucks get shot by people all the time. But when you go out into the average hunting population, it's like nobody's doing that. There's like 5 people per state that are doing that. And so it's like your perception of this is like, oh, everybody's got this going. No. You're just hearing about it now, and it doesn't really exist in the, it's the diamond in the rough dog. Don't count on that.
No, that's like depending on the lottery for your retirement.
Yep. It's a poor idea. So you're a lab guy, and I know that. But do you train anything else? Are you running anything and everything through?
We are primarily for what we do, competitive wise, is mainly 99% Labradors. We train a little of everything. I've trained German short hairs to Boykins to Goldens to you name it. I've trained it. So we run a little bit of everything, and every now and then I come from a bird dog background. That's what I started as, was a bird dog guy, or pointing dog guy. So every now and then I get a wild hair, and I'll get somebody call me, and I'll take in 2 or 3 bird dogs, and so it's when I need a reprieve from getting my butt whipped in field trials. So we do a little bit of everything. We aren't afraid to take on anything. I do a lot of behavior modification. A lot of dogs that other trainers wash out or have problems with get sent to me to fix. Pretty much all breeds. Now that being said, I got a program, and we're very adaptive in that program. But if it's something that's if you're paying me to train a dog and 20 other people are paying me to train a dog, everybody's paying the same thing. And if I got a dog that's going to take up, 4 times the effort and the time through the whole thing, a lot of times we'll shy away from that just because I want to be fair to all my owners. But train everything there is. If it'll pick up a bird, we'll try it.